Great. And I know not everyone is here yet, but I do want to keep us on time. We only have an hour together, which is going to go by fast, I know. So I'd like to go ahead and get started. And then as people come in, we can continue introductions. So thank you all so much for being here. I'm really thrilled to see some people I know, some people I don't know, and to be talking today about partnership with Hand in Hand on what that means and what it's going to look like. I'll start by way of introduction, and then we'll move on to talking a little bit about who Hand in Hand is and what we might accomplish together. So my name is Erica Sklar, and I'm the lead national organizer at Hand in Hand. My job is to support campaigns that advance standards for domestic workers. And we'll talk a little bit today about the domestic worker movement and the really important role that agencies, cooperatives, hiring halls, worker dispatch centers play in supporting the domestic worker movement broadly, and also ensuring that this domestic worker workforce benefits from the same supports and protections of other industries. I want to start by sharing just a little bit of history about Hand in Hand and the domestic worker movement. Before I do that, I want to turn it over to folks who are part of Hand in Hand's agency council to just say hello and introduce themselves. And then give everyone here, because we're not a huge group, just a couple of minutes to say hello. Crystal, do you want to kick us off?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Crystal Crawford. You can call me Crystal Gale, and I'm the owner of Elite Metro Nannies, also Hey Crystal Gale Consulting, where I do have a couple of agencies that are under my coaching program, and I'm really excited about helping them get connected to Hand in Hand in a future spot on the agency council.
Alan, I know you're eating lunch, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. My name is Alan Gallion. I'm based in Hollywood, California. I am a participant as a care fellow from Caring Across Generations, active member of Hand in Hand, and also a volunteer at the Filipino Workers Center in Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Marky, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. My name is Marquis, and I am the owner of Nanny Village Agency. We serve families and domestic workers throughout California. And I'm also a member of Hand in Hand and have been enjoying being a part of the group.
Thank you so much. So you heard from several people already. You'll hear from more people as our time goes on. For people who are newer to Hand in Hand, do you want to either come off mute and say your name and the organization or company that you're with? Or if you don't want to do that, feel free to put it in the chat as well.
I'll jump in. I'm Ashley. Lindsay's on the call as well, and we are from the Nanny League. So we're excited to be here and to learn more about how we can implement some strategies in our agency.
Great. Thanks for being here.
I can go next. I'm Matthew Slats. See again, what role am I playing right now? So I am a part of the Virginia Solidarity Economy Network, where we've been trying to organize and start a worker cooperative development center, which is legal as of 2 weeks ago. But also very interested in care economy and working with domestic workers and all that fun stuff.
Great. And Sarah, I see you put in the chat, you're from My Care Cal. Thanks so much. Thanks everyone for being here and taking some time out of your day to learn a little bit about what Hand in Hand does and how we might work together. So Hand in Hand works in several areas. We advance laws that benefit domestic workers and people who need long-term care and support, like people with disabilities and older adults who want to live independently. And we also provide outreach and education and many resources about laws and best practices to individuals across the industry, from government, like government agencies to placement agencies, as well as individual employers. And Hand in Hand works in lockstep with worker-led organizations, including the National Domestic Workers Alliance. And together we support passage of laws that domestic workers themselves are helping to shape and prioritize and campaign for. But of course, we know that a lot of the responsibility does rest on employers to know their responsibilities and implement these laws in their homes. And therefore, it's all of our obligation on this call to make sure that we know about the laws and have the resources that we need to put them into practice. And that's why one of Hand in Hand's real top priorities is to be very approachable for everyone who comes across our work and everyone that we meet. So in that spirit, as we move through this presentation, I hope you'll feel really comfortable asking questions or naming if you have what we call literacy moments. So if there are any terms that you're not familiar with, please come off mute or jot in the chat, and we'll get into some of the details. You heard we're coming to this presentation from lots of different places. So I want to make sure that I'm explaining myself well and that you'll stop me if I'm not doing a good enough job. I'm going to tell you a little bit first about how Hand in Hand functions. And I think this might be instructive to people who aren't aware of Hand in Hand's work yet. So our strategy has been to work really closely with worker-led organizations and worker coalitions in order to win laws. And typically those campaigns are led by domestic workers themselves. The laws take lots of different shapes. They can be paid sick leave policies to requirements for written contracts. We're always working on many campaigns across the country at the same time, and that includes working on a federal campaign to pass a domestic workers' bill of rights that would benefit all over 2 million domestic workers in the US. But winning laws is not the same as having laws implemented in every employer's home. I'm sure all of you know that. So once we win, we go back to government sources and other funding sources in order to make sure that we have resources to do our outreach and education work to make sure that employers know about the laws and are really working to make rights real for the workers who work in their homes. We know that policy is only as good as the people who know it exists. So, this implementation process is a critical part of our work. And once we win investments, we move into education mode to reach as many employers of domestic workers as we can. And this year we're even knocking on doors. So this is a new part of our strategy. We're very excited about to reach people in their homes to talk with them about, what their practices are. Hand in Hand has existed for 15 years, and we've seen during that time policy advancements to protect domestic workers in 11 states and 4 cities. And in some cases, that includes multiple policies, like in California and Connecticut, we have more than one policy that protects domestic workers. And thousands of employers visit our website every month, and they're looking for information about how to do the right thing. Hand in Hand is the one and only nonprofit in the United States that's creating resources specifically for the individual employers of domestic workers. And we know that if they're not coming to Hand in Hand and they're not going to all of you, they could be getting all kinds of information from all manner of places. And, that could be from social media. It could be from agencies that we know are not necessarily high road agencies. They could be getting information that's just not correct or not legal. I don't know about all of you, but I spent some time on the nanny subreddit, and it is wild out there, you guys. You all probably know as well as I do, and maybe even better, all the new options for things like certifications and changing industry standards, as well as opportunities for upward mobility. And these are all examples of culture change that help really support the rationale for improving protections for domestic workers at the policy level as well. And lastly, there's incredible growing visibility of domestic workers across the country. And in particular, in the wake of the pandemic, we've seen more than ever people like celebrities thanking the people who work for them and, featuring photos of them and celebrating them. And we also see the opposite, right? I'm sure you all remember in 2021, the Rachel Hollis scandal, when she spoke poorly about the person who cleans her home. So one of the things that Hand in Hand is doing to really try to support this culture change and make sure that we're sort of have our finger on the pulse around where things are in the agency world is to develop what we call the Agency Council. So this group follows the lead of our sister organization, the National Domestic Workers Alliance. They have formations that they call worker councils, which bring together workers who are in various parts of the industry in order to advocate for their individual needs and wishes for policy advancement and more. So for example, they have like the Nanny Council and the Tech Workers Council, and those are specific groups of people who are coming together to advance their own ideas in the broader movement. So we're thinking of ourselves at the Agency Council as, you know, a group that's really thinking deeply about what the formations of agencies should be responsible for, and what is our work in this broader landscape. So a little bit about what we're doing now. We are working to bring information and education as well as resources to all of you and more. We want to be reaching agencies across the country through things like webinars that we're creating for the US Nanny Association. We're tabling at industry events, and we're reaching agencies through social media. We're also working with the RFK Center for Human Rights on a business case study about the economic basis for high road agency work, as well as an investment guide that help ensure that interested parties know where and why and how to invest in the care economy. And I know many folks on this call today are childcare or like nanny agencies. But one thing I just want to name, and I don't know very much about this, but I know it's something that I'm concerned about, that private equity has like really stepped its foot in the home care agency landscape and has started to change some of the standards around what is acceptable and not acceptable in that industry. And they're looking at childcare as well as a potential investment opportunity in a way that I think we should be thinking about as a broader movement. And I'm in touch with some people who are really working very closely on this issue. And I think, you know, we may have some work as an agency council and as a broader network to do there. I do want to take a moment to introduce you to the Agency Council. They're amazing. I am like truly in awe of this group that's come together. And I'm just our facilitator. I'm not an agency owner, so I just feel really grateful for all the brains and inspiration that come from this group. And we're a group of agency professionals, industry leaders, academics, nonprofit professionals, and we work across the domestic worker industry from payroll to cooperative development to owning local or national agencies. So many of these people are here today, can offer their own expertise and help answer questions. I'm not going to go into all the detail of who everyone in these pictures is, but I'll just say we represent people from across the country and in many different areas. I see, Sarah, your note to see Elliot Haspel's recent article on private equity in the childcare space. Yeah, I think one thing that might make sense is for me to sort of like put together a whole bunch of information and resources and share everything back with this group, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great ideas and resources and things to be thinking about together in this meeting and beyond. This is the rest of the Agency Council. Lots of amazing folks here, including people who are on this call, as I said, across the country. So I want to get into the meat of this conversation, which is what can we do together? I'll say at Hand in Hand, we want to do what you want to do. We know that you're really busy. we know how many resources your clients need, and we want to know like what makes sense to you. So before I get into more about that, I would love to pause here and ask like what was motivating to you to join this call today, and what are some of the things that you're thinking about as you think about partnership or learning more about the domestic worker movement? Or if you're a member of the agency council or hand in hand, what, what resources have been helpful, or if you have thoughts about what we could or should be creating, I'd love to hear that too. Or if you don't know, maybe you could tell me what you're thinking about as I'm introducing hand in hand, what's on your mind.
I can pop in briefly. So let me think about this. So as a part of like the Virginia Solidarity Economy Network, like we've been organizing people around the state to kind of build a different economy. And one of the things that, again, is just so much of that work is centered in care. If it's social work, if it's daycare, if it's like custodial cleaning services care, like nanny care, like there's always so things. And the thing about Virginia is that like it's such we're a right to work state. So I mean, labor has been pretty contained for a long time. We do have some unions, but I think the things that we're thinking about is like, how do we start to build an economy that is worker owned? How are we shifting the relationship between labor and capital? So it's great to hear about the private equity conversation. And how do we just build the relationships and the connections that need to be sustained? I'm thinking back to a call that actually Eric and I are on with other organizers and the domestic workers. And again, I think the shift from, yeah, we need to put laws in place, but we also need to be on the ground organizing in very meaningful ways. So that's about relationship building, which is slow and long work, but important work. So, so thinking a lot about those things.
Yeah. So much there, Matthew, of like, how do we build really deeply and also build broad at the same time? And I think that's a question that hand in hand is always trying to answer. We've been around for 15 years and we work really closely and really deeply with some organizations, but yeah, we're definitely also trying to figure out like, how do we do that and also get the information that every employer needs in their home, right? So like some of it is light touch and a lot of it is like heavier touch. Yeah. Loving these messages from the Nanny League. If you're not in the chat already, you definitely want to check this out. I'll read off the top line. A few things that they're interested in is representation of marginalized groups, naturalization support for undocumented workers, and inclusivity on a broader scale. And these are things that Hand in Hand is really thinking deeply about as well, and definitely have some big questions that are not going to be answered on this call. I'm very sorry that we won't be able to probably get into all the details about things like naturalization support. And just want to appreciate that that's on your mind, because we know that so many nanny agencies are doing a great job placing documented workers, and that means that some people are excluded and still sort of like left in more of what we call like a gray economy, where they don't get the benefits of working with an agency, and we know those benefits are real. Yeah, thanks so much for those questions. Does anybody else want to respond to what's in the chat or what Matthew shared?
I think I could chime in at this point. At CareKale, we're building some tech that any sitter or nanny can use sort of as their digital briefcase. We don't screen or vet, so that sort of enables that population that might not be fully documented yet or whatnot to participate in tech. And I guess that sort of is a good segue into the question or need I have for you. You know, we're building this care-centric scheduling booking technology in the B2C space, hopefully to come to B2B, to agencies. And we want to use tech to sort of build in flags and key points where our parent users can learn about things like nanny industry standards. And so I would love some help in terms of what sort of like features and buttons can we make super easy and into our UI UX that flag parents to do the right thing.
Ooh, I love that. I can think of so many. I see Emily smiling. I'm sure you're thinking of some too. That's a great idea. And, I think some of the things that that come up for us are things that are like things that we're passing in policy, like along the contract lines, right? Like we may not have one paid days off in certain locations, but we want a contract, and the contract includes if there's paid days off. Therefore, whoever's filling out the contract sees like, oh, paid time off maybe is a thing that I should think about. So yeah, I'd love to talk further about that. I'm sure many of us would. And it sounds like you're building really interesting software that'll be really highly usable. The other thing I'll say, and unfortunately, neither of them could be here today, but some of our payroll professionals on the agency council will definitely be interested in learning more about what you're building and thinking together about like, how do we create the tech that also makes it very easy, for example, for a house cleaner employer to pay their share of a paid time off policy that's already in place, right? Like, this is a big question. How do we make benefits easy for everyone? And that's equally true, I think, to answer some of the questions from the Nanny League, like, how do we make benefits easy, no matter whether we're working with someone who's documented or undocumented? How do we make those rights really very real for people? I'm going to move us ahead unless anyone has further thoughts or questions. So we want to work with you in order to share a little bit about what we're doing at hand in hand and how it might relate. So that might be, when new campaigns are happening or when new policies are passed, we want to make sure that we're sharing the details with you. We know that you're not necessarily policy professionals, and frankly, neither are we, but we are part of the campaign, so we know when things are happening. We also want to join you in being a really accessible voice to your clients. We love the idea of co-branded materials, or so I saw somebody said social media work or webinars, resources like that, to make sure that you have all the materials that you want to be passing along to clients, and also to invite your clients to be in full compliance with the law and best practices, no matter where they live. Our resources are always, I would say, warm and inviting. They're informative, but they also really insist on respect and dignity for the people who are caring for our families and in our homes. The other thing I just want to name is that we've created the High Road Agency Pledge, and this is a pledge that your agency can take, and it's really just a declaration that you're doing the right thing, just like the clients that you take on will, and that therefore clients can trust your agency to be sure that the information you're giving them is as up to date as possible in terms of legal requirements and industry standards. And, the reason that we publish this is partially because we know that individual employers are really motivated to hire with industry standards in mind. And that's not only because it's good for workers, right? Like, employers understand that it's also good for them. I don't know anybody who wants to hire somebody more than once, no matter what industry they're in. And, everyone knows that making a job attractive depends on things like clarity, paid time off, good wages, etc. So This pledge also aligns with a pledge that we've put together for our individual household employers, which we call our Fair Care Pledge. And no brags, but that was signed by President Obama. And so I want to invite you to sign this pledge. I'm going to put it in the chat now. And that also will just be a way for you to stay in touch with Hand in Hand. It will add you, if you want it to, it will add you to our mailing list so we can let you know when things are going on where you live or important updates from around the country. But we don't email too much. So what can we actually do together, right? We've named a couple of things and it seems like there's additional conversation to be had, but I want to name a few more tangible things here. I'm going to start with thinking about culture change together. This is kind of like our pie in the sky big goal, right? To like change the world that we live in. And it's already happening, right? Like we just talked about, more and more clients are really looking to work with agencies and co-ops and hiring halls who are valuing workers' rights. And they're choosing who to work with based on the track record of support for employees and the standards that they're upholding. So, we really want you to be part of this movement with us. And we know that the more employers and agencies out there that are upholding these standards and values make the whole industry better. And we all know that there are employers and agencies that are bad actors, right? Not only are they not upholding their mandate to support workers in employment relationships, they don't care about that. And we believe that that's our duty as employers, right? Like we really don't want the onus to be on workers to be constantly running know your rights trainings. We also want employers to know their responsibilities, right? Both are important, but we know that employees are much less likely to actually go to their employers and ask and try to exercise their rights. We know it's much easier for employers to say, hey, I've recently learned about this policy. Do all of your employers know that you earn paid sick leave? I think we have a duty to make sure that we're working in tandem with worker-led organizations to be doing our part around education. We also know, I'm sure you know too, employers are so busy, right? That's why they hire you. That's why they like come to Hand in Hand and can stay on our website for like 15 seconds before they get called away to do something else, right? We really want to respond to how busy they are by creating resources and resources with you that are what they're looking for, that are simple to read, and that are super digestible, right? So that we're sure that employers have the information that they need and can make any necessary changes in their home as easily as possible. So together, that means we're making safer work environments. And we're also helping to remove the stigma that still exists around hiring someone in the first place. And, I think that comes from some really difficult history around the domestic worker movement and the reality that the history of domestic work in the United States is really tied to racism and to the history of enslavement in the United States. It's also true that women, especially across the United States, are told like that they should be able to do everything and they shouldn't have to hire someone to do everything. So I think there's a lot of reasons that we don't talk about this more openly, and Hand in Hand really wants to be approachable in a way that allows people to really make sure that we're fulfilling our obligations without feeling alienated, without feeling afraid to speak, and with some community. We want to welcome more and more people into this work with joy, with enthusiasm. And I think we all know that people are very happy to have more and better information, especially when it's well presented. So I think there's lots of opportunities for us to work together to create those circumstances. And then lastly, I think I spoke about this very briefly at the beginning. Hand in Hand has a lot of credibility across the domestic worker industry. And that's one of the things that I'm most proud about working for this organization. You know, sometimes when I meet people for the first time who are really like deep in movement space, they're like, employers are the enemy. I'm like, no, employers don't have to be the enemy, you know? And I think over 15 years, we've proven to domestic workers, to worker-led affiliates, to coalitions, and to legislators that we're here to stay and our relationships really matter to us, and that we want to be in like really good relationship, not just with employers, not just with workers, not just with coalitions or policy members, but also with agencies. We know that, you know, when we're all sort of like working together, we can move the whole industry forward in the ways that you're already doing and we're already doing, but we can be doing, instead of doing it parallel, we can do it really, really in more in tandem. So, you know, hand in hand does have the ability to bring together lots of different stakeholders, and that can mean lots of different things, right? As we build out our high road agency program, we want to create opportunities for agencies to be part of policy campaigns, right? Like we want agencies to be sitting on the task forces that we're asked to recruit employers and agencies to be part of. There's lots of different ways that I think hand in hand can bring additional value to agencies in terms of, you know, brand awareness, credibility, and things of that nature. So lots of opportunities here too. I'm gonna pause there for questions because I know I've been talking for like 30 minutes straight. So I'd love to hear kind of where people are at, what you're thinking about, what next steps might make sense. Anything that's coming up. Alan, go ahead.
Hi, just a quick quip on what I heard earlier. In Los Angeles or in places like Los Angeles, it's not the employer that is the enemy or the agencies. It's actually money. I'm I will probably suggest that one of these days let's talk about the economics part of things because I'm experiencing as a domestic worker, I'm experiencing, you know, having clients that are really wanting to stay away from agencies because it is very, very expensive if we do mathematics. So yeah, just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's so real. And I think, you know, Alan, you're not alone, right? Like the money piece of things is really difficult across the board, right? From home care, you know, home care workers not earning enough money to people on fixed incomes not earning enough money from the government to pay home care workers properly, to parents who just simply can't afford the incredible cost of childcare. And all of these things are also connected, right? And they connect to Ashley, some of your notes, right? That like there's a reason, right, that childcare isn't subsidized in the US. There's a reason that domestic work has been so deprofessionalized over time. These are systemic problems that require systemic solutions. Yeah, and that's exactly it, Alan. That's why employers are not the enemy, right? The enemy is the system that's created this deficit. Other things coming up for people? Okay, I'm gonna move us along then. What now? First, just a reminder to fill out that high road agency pledge. I think there's probably many more conversations to come, and especially seeing some different types of feedback, like what kind of technology do we need? How are we thinking about inclusivity and undocumented workers? Maybe this is actually the first of a conversation series that various things come out of, and I'll share that this is also how the agency council started in the first place. Emily was there right at the very beginning when we started, and I was like, I think we should do something with agencies. And then we just had a series of conversations. And I think this is a similar thing we're developing together. I would love to spend more time with each of you and learn more about your individual ideas and needs. Definitely do want you to stay involved with Hand in Hand. And I also want to invite you to join Hand in Hand as a dues paying member if you're not already. And this is one really critical way that your organization can stake its claim in the domestic worker movement by investing in the kinds of quality resources and advocacy that no other organization across the country is doing right now. Each company and individual on the agency council is a member of Hand in Hand. You've heard from them during this conversation, and I would love to pass it to Crystal and to anybody else who wants to share about why membership at Hand in Hand is valuable to you.
Hi, everybody. First off, thank you, Erica, for the information. It's good, even though I've heard it before, it's always good to get a recap of like why we do what we do. And so I just want to welcome everybody, like an official, like, hey, thanks y'all for coming and responding to the invite. We are on a mission, and I will tell you that we like to win. I am also affiliated as the board chair with National Domestic Workers Alliance. And so that supports the workers. Hand in Hand supports and guides the employers. Yes, we win for domestic workers, but we need you, the employers, to help us enforce the things that we have won. So if you don't get anything else from this meeting on why we should be here today and why you should join Hand in Hand, is because we need help enforcing what we've won already. And the cool thing is that I'm not saying that this is going to be everybody's story, but I honestly can say me being connected with the domestic worker movement has given me so many opportunities, like introducing the president. Hence why we are basically here today. I was like, hey, we got to figure out how to get more people on board, because this movement is moving. The care economy is literally in every single conversation right now. And if you are not on the right side of the conversation, you're going to get left behind. I mean, I just hate to be so blatant like that, but you're going to get left behind. And so many of you all have already poured your hearts and money and time into this industry, regardless if you're in the nanny industry, you're working with other parts of the domestic work movement, you poured your life into your businesses, and why not get the support and the recognition that you have and should deserve? Because yes, we're doing great things with National Domestic Workers Alliance, but we need our employers. We can't do the work we do without having the employers in their buy-in as well. And so I just want to tell y'all again, thank you. Hand in Hand has been a great resource. And speaking of resources, I know that there's going to be tons of duplicates that you see, but these are specifically for employers. But so if there's a resource that you're sending out to parents towards the end of the placement process, you're going to have vetted materials. I'm not talking about the industry things that we already have out there. These are vetted materials, Department of Labor, things that you should already have access to, but also you're going to know your rights. As a business owner, you're going to know what laws have been passed in your city, your state, so that you can be up on everything, because literally the laws are changing. Okay, they change, and sometimes we don't know because we don't have the information that's coming to our emails. And so Hand in Hand has really basically filled that gap for a lot of agencies, because you're doing so much with placing the nannies, the house cleaners, whomever you're serving. But oftentimes there's a whole nother movement happening behind you, and you're just trying to keep your business afloat, right? I remember those days during the pandemic. A lot of people was like, I'm just trying to keep my doors open. Hand in Hand was like, we got you. We got the resources. There's a couple of domestic workers Bill of Rights that have passed. Did you know about it, right? They're filling in the gap so that you do not have to do all the things. And shout out to the solopreneurs that are here on the call today. I see you. You need to be in partnership with Hand in Hand, because you cannot do all of this alone. Yes, you can. I know everybody's not blessed to have a team like the Nanny League. Shout out to the Nanny League. Y'all came in with questions, and I'm like, yes, you get it, right? You get it. These are things that we want to answer for you, because these are the concerns that have been coming to the table. How do we support those undocumented workers? How do we get people that are already on our team to understand that we serve all individuals, not just an exclusive amount of people because they have the credentials? No, we're inclusive. And your team has to your team has to look like you're inclusive as well. So that's a different conversation. So again, I will release the mic, but thank y'all for coming, because Hand in Hand has been such a blessing to me. Yes, I'm doing all the things. I'm kind of like Matthew. I'm like doing all the things, but I would tell you, if you are a business owner and a business owner in this industry that is serving domestic workers, it's a small drop in the bucket for the amount of things that you receive in return. Thank y'all.
Thanks, Crystal. I love it when Crystal's on the mic. You can have the mic all day. I'm gonna stop my screen share now, and I'm gonna share with you the link to join Hand in Hand. As a member. But I also do want to open it up to others if anybody else has questions, or Emily, Marquis, Alan, if you want to share anything about Hand in Hand membership.
I'll jump in. I'll jump in if you're okay with that. Hi, everybody. I'm Emily. Thank you for being here. And Erica, thank you for that fantastic presentation. And Crystal, oh my gosh, thank you for everything that you're doing on a huge level. I'm going to try not to take up a lot of the people here who know me well. Know I talk a lot. And I like to kind of get on the margin and let everybody talk and whatever before I take up the space that I do. So I'm going to try to be short. I took a ton of notes here. I want to talk really quickly, Alan, about the money thing, the economic thing. That's huge. I appreciate that so much. And I really heard that. I think that's very real right now. I wanted to talk a couple of things that the Nanny League mentioned on creating a pathway to citizenship for the people that we work with, the inclusivity. That's something that we've been working on here since like 2018, right? And just to give you a little bit of an idea of my relationship with Hand in Hand, I've been in with you all since like 2018, right? 2019, since we did the work at the Seattle level. And very, very, very much appreciated the support for the employers, because ultimately I do think that they want to do the right thing. And then one final comment, I'm going to hand it back to you. Sarah, I think, that talked about building the platform, right? I was a huge proponent of a mandated notification of rights, and that's something we did not get at the city level here, but it was something that I took to like care.com and Urban Sitter, and I'm like, we have to find a way, being the big picture thinker that I am, of getting that message out there the same way that you walk into any employment environment and you have that posted, and because we all know that there's a real inherent power dynamic that goes on that favors the employer in the private home setting, right? So I'm going to hand it back to you. Thank you for hearing me out. I had a lot of things to bring up, and I hope I covered it all. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Anybody else have final thoughts here before we sign off a little early? Yeah, Sarah, it seems like our whole agency council is probably going to have a lot of thoughts for you. So I wonder if we need to just invite you to a meeting and give you all our feedback at once. I am definitely very, very excited to continue this conversation with each of you. I'm going to put the link back in the chat. Yeah, definitely. Let's stay connected. I have all of your email addresses from your registration, so I'm happy to help support any connections that need to happen as a result of this meeting. And then it seems like our next step for right now is maybe to set up a couple of different conversations, maybe one about tech, maybe one about broadly inclusivity, but definitely lots more to come. Thank you so much for being here, and look forward to staying in touch with each of you. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.